Hey guys, welcome to Living Seeds Farm. Welcome to our garlic talk. It is so good to see so many people here. So I presume most of you here are wanting to learn how to grow garlic. Yes. Who's grown bad garlic? Okay, everyone's grown bad garlic. We've grown bad garlic. Some years we have really good harvests. Some years we have really bad harvests. And the thing with garlic is that there are certain things that you need to follow. There's certain steps that you have to follow. If you follow the steps, you will grow great garlic. Okay, and a lot of it is to do with your soil health. And unfortunately, you can't fix soil health like this. It doesn't come in a bag. Okay, and there's a lot of work that needs to happen to improve your soil health. And I'm going to talk through a whole lot of things. This talk is supposed to be an hour long. I'm going to run over, okay? I really enjoy talking about garlic. And I think one of the reasons why I enjoy talking about garlic is we grow, I think we grow about 25 or 26 different kinds of garlic. And I've just been given another garlic variety this morning, so 26, 27 varieties of garlic. So what happens is we've been growing garlic for 11 or 12 years on this property. I've been growing garlic for a couple of years before that as well. And over the years, I've learned a lot about growing garlic. And the nice thing is, Living Seeds is the only company that grows so many different types of garlic. Most people grow 2 or 3 kinds of garlic, or they buy garlic in and they resell the garlic. We grow the garlic over here, and we have 2 contract growers that grow garlic for us on an annual basis. So we have direct control over the garlic that we are selling to you, okay, which is really, really cool. Who's here from Pretoria, north of Pretoria, where you guys don't get frost? Yeah, okay. So what you'll find is that you guys will struggle a bit more to grow nice garlic than us that live in the frost belt. Okay, and I'll explain to you how this works now and why it works. Cool, so we've got 20-something varieties of garlic. I think this year we're selling about 16 or 17 varieties. And the cool thing is we are selling garlic varieties that are mild. So this giant garlic over here, everyone knows what giant garlic is. Yes? Yes. Who buys garlic in tubs at Pick n Pay? It's giant garlic. Okay. The unfortunate thing is that the commercial giant garlic growers in South Africa are we're losing them on an annual basis, because what's happening is they're growing this garlic in China, they're drying the garlic, sending it in bags, dried garlic here. The processors are buying the dried garlic, adding water, and putting it into tubs and selling it to you at your local supermarket. How horrible is that? Hey? So giant garlic is a bit of an issue, but this is a processing garlic. Okay, people grow this garlic because they want to process it into another product. Okay, and it's not a garlic. Huh? I heard a couple over there. This is not a garlic, this is a leek. Okay, a leek like you put in soup, this is a leek. It's a leek that looks, smells, and tastes like garlic, but it's actually a leek. And if you look at the way the garlic grows, it grows completely differently to other garlic varieties. Cool. So, growing garlic is easy. And it's also very difficult. Okay? Those of you that have harvested little garlic like this, okay, it's like, what have I done wrong? I did everything that the manual said. What did I do wrong? Okay? And you might have done everything that the manual has said, but there might be 1 or 2 things that you didn't do. And we'll run through all of them today. Okay. So like I said, we've been growing garlic for 12 years. We have experience with a whole host of garlic varieties that we grow. We also have experience with growing garlic in different climatic conditions. Who remembers how wet last year was? Okay. Yeah, it was absolutely horrendous. And we were unable to harvest garlic that didn't look like this. Okay, where all the wrapper leaves are gone. And I'll explain to you now, this garlic doesn't look lacquer. Okay, you're not going to go and buy it in a shop. but there's nothing wrong with this garlic and it's perfect to plant. But I'll run through it just now. We have 4 fields running at the bottom of our farm that this year with the rains, remember we had those rains, like non-stop rains, couldn't get into the fields, couldn't harvest the garlic. This is the garlic that came out of those fields. Okay, cool. So, when it comes to garlic supply, Living Seeds is the only consistent garlic supplier in South Africa. Okay, we are the only consistent supplier of multiple varieties of garlic. And it's important that you have access to multiple varieties of garlic. Because those of you that live in Pretoria, you live in a little microclimate that's super humid, or it's super dry, or it's super hot. There's certain garlic varieties that'll grow very well for you guys. There's other guys that live in Parys where they get frost in January. I'm joking, but it's close. Okay? And a different garlic varieties will grow well for them. There's guys in the Midlands where in the Camberg in Midlands, they get really, really early frost. They get snow, and it's cold, constantly cold. There's certain garlic varieties that will grow exceptionally well over there, but they won't grow well over here. Okay? And that is where you have access to different garlic varieties. It's not just the climate, it's your soil. Who's got clay soil? Who's got sandy soil? Who's got rocky soil? Who hasn't got soil? Okay? All of these things play a factor in how your garlic will grow. Okay? And I can give you a manual. We've written a garlic manual. It's a fantastic manual. We've got a video on YouTube that tells you how to grow garlic. And we give you the basic guidelines. You need to take those guidelines and make them work for yourself and understand, because we get people that come to me and say, my garlic is like this, why? And now you've got to sit down and you've got to actually run through the whole process. And it's a case of maybe their irrigation didn't work for 4 weeks. Or the guy that was irrigating their garlic said, yeah, no, I'm irrigating. But he goes there, turns it on for half an hour, comes back later, half an hour, turns it off. And the garlic is water stressed. No, but my garlic was watered perfectly. I know. I've got people like that. Okay. You laugh. Yeah, because you know. Correct. Okay, cool. So growing garlic is all about timing. And we see those of you that are on Living Seeds Veggie Gardeners, our Facebook group, okay, there's about 200,000 people on the Living Seeds Veggie Gardeners group. We see people planting garlic in October, November, December. They go to the shop and they buy a garlic and it's growing green. Oh, my garlic is growing. Let me plant it in November. Who's planted garlic in November? Come, guys. How does the garlic look? Not lacquer. Okay. So a garlic has certain things that need to happen. What you need to understand is that garlic comes from the northern hemisphere. The northern hemisphere's winters are cold, they wet, and they long. And that is what garlic likes. It likes a cold, wet, long winter. Okay, and if you can duplicate that for the garlic, there's a very good chance that you're going to grow very good garlic. The problem that we have is that our winters are generally cold, they're very dry. And our real winter is 6 weeks long. If you think about it, the actual winter is 6 weeks long. It's not long enough for garlic. And that is probably the biggest issue that you're going to have in producing good garlic, is creating the environment that the garlic thinks, I have a good winter. Okay, so that is what I'm going to try and teach you today and how to do it. Cool. So there's two aspects to growing garlic. The aspect that you have control over and the aspect that you don't have control over. What don't you have control over? The weather. Correct. That's what you don't have control over. So what you need to do is you need to try and get control of that weather. And I'll explain to you how we do it now. So when to plant the garlic. We've only just started shipping our garlic out now. And there's a reason why we do that. We used to ship our garlic out. We harvest garlic, we process November, December, and then the garlic sits in our cold room. And we used to ship out garlic in December, and the people go, oh, my garlic's arrived, let me put it in the ground. They didn't read the instructions that said wait until the middle of February. Okay, and then they go phone us and say, but my garlic hasn't, when did you plant? No, I planted it when I received it, like a good gardener. But the good gardener didn't read the actual instructions that came with the garlic. So when to plant your garlic? Middle of February, Valentine's Day, is when you start planting your garlic. However, if you live in an area where you are cooking at 35 degrees Celsius in February, don't plant your garlic. Take your garlic, put it into the lettuce crisper drawer in your fridge. Leave it there for 2 or 3 weeks. The garlic will love it. Okay, wait until the soil temperature starts to cool down. You don't want to be planting garlic into hot soil. Okay, you want to be planting garlic into cool soil. Those of you that live in north of Pretoria, no frost, or in Natal, no frost, or Limpopo and Mpumalanga, where you guys don't get frost. If you live in a very warm area and you're going to have a warm winter, plant your garlic deeper in the soil. So normally we say to a person, plant the garlic 3 times deeper than the clove is long. So you'll plant this garlic about that deep. Min of meer naaste by plus minus ongeveer. Okay. It doesn't have to be exactly 3 times. I had a German guy that phoned me, and he said, yeah, I measured your garlic, and there are some that are 15 millimeters, and there are others that are 8. Do I need to put them exactly? No, sir, please don't worry about it. Okay? Approximately 3 times deeper. No, I'm serious. Okay? You know these Germans that's like, everything has to be exact. If you live in a warm area, plant it 6 times deeper, up to 10 centimeters deeper. The deeper you plant it inside the soil, the longer it stays cool. Okay. Work with what you have. You know what environment that you have. Every single person has a different microclimate over here. Absolutely. So that's the first thing, is when to plant it. Middle of February, and in Gauteng you want to end sort of mid-April is the latest. If you are in the Western Cape, you can go a little bit longer, so sort of mid-May. But no one's here from the Western Cape. Oh, you are from the Western Cape. Congratulations. Thanks for driving up. Okay, so I've covered when to plant it. I've covered how to plant it, or how deep to plant it. Okay, it's an approximation thing. If you have very sandy soil, plant it deeper, because the sandy soil heats up faster than soil with a high organic matter. Okay, and these are the things that you just need to work out for yourself. The next thing is, those of you that are existing Living Seeds customers know that I talk a lot about mulching. Absolutely. Okay, mulching is the number one way that you can alter your soil's temperature, you can alter the amount of water that your soil is holding, and you can keep your garlic cool for longer. And I'll cover the mulching a little bit later. But what do you mulch with? Mulch with anything organic. Cardboard boxes, fantastic. Okay, straw, grass clippings, leaves. Those of you that are raking your leaves up this winter and putting them into black bags and taking them to the dump, shame on you. Okay, that is the perfect mulch for your garlic. Seriously, it's the perfect mulch. And you want to be mulching it like this. 5 centimeters is the minimum you want to mulch. When you pour your brandy and coke, that's how thick your mulch needs to be. All right. Fertilization. Now, so fertilization, we've done a lot of work with fertilization of garlic. We run experiments every single year on what to fertilize, how to fertilize. We will fertilize a row differently. Somebody will come and tell me, no, but you mustn't do this, you must do this. Cool. I'll try it. And I'll try 1 row in the middle of a field, or I'll try 2 rows in the middle of the field. When we harvest those 2 rows separately, weigh those 2 rows, and then weigh them against the balance of the field. And then we can tell you, yes, it works, or no, it doesn't work. Okay? And every single year we learn something new. Those of you Who's taken our activated worm effluent that we give away occasionally? Have you seen the results of that stuff? And?
My indoor plants. One plant only ever had 4 leaves.
Yeah?
And I counted this morning, it's got its 9th leaf coming out, and I was here for your worm talk
Yes.
2 months ago.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 months it's made a big difference.
So, fantastic. It's a case of you can see a response in plants in 24 hours with that stuff. It's absolutely mind-blowing. So we will use activated worm effluent or activated worm tea. I've got a video on YouTube on Living Seeds Farm. It's called Awesome. Activated worm effluent sim. Awesome. Okay. It tells you how to make it. We will make 1,000 liters at least once a week, and we just put it down on anything that's growing. It is absolutely mind-blowing. On our garlic crops, we will put down activated worm effluent a minimum of 3 times a year. That's over and above the fertilization. Okay, and what that supplies into the soil is, it is basically a super concentrated population of worm bacteria, of soil bacteria. Okay, it is worm bacteria because the bacteria comes out of the inside of the worm's gut. Okay, but we will put that down a minimum of 3 times a year. Once just after the garlic has come up, and then twice, once early spring and once midsummer, about a month before we harvest, just to increase that bulb size. When you plant your garlic, okay, we recommend 2 fertilizers currently. We might be changing that next year, but currently we recommend 2 fertilizers. The first thing that you want to do is you want to get leaf growth on your garlic plant. Okay, you want to get that leaf growth. So what you need to understand is that your garlic plant, when it hits winter, the number of leaves that the plant has produced is the number of leaves the garlic plant will produce. Okay, it does not produce new leaves in spring. So if you can get that plant, even if it's a tiny little leaf inside the garlic plant that hasn't actually grown out yet, that leaf is there, it's been produced, that leaf will grow into a new leaf. Okay, but if it hasn't been produced before the bulb goes dormant, it will not produce new leaves the following season. Does that make sense? Okay, so you want to get the leaf growth, you want to accelerate the leaf growth before winter sets in. So we recommend Vitagreen, which is from Talborn Organics. The guys from Talborn are here. You can go and have a chat to them. They'll be able to help you. Okay, but we recommend Vitagreen at about 100 to 150 grams per running meter. So 150 grams is a nice big handful per running meter. You do that at planting. Done. Finished. Okay, the only other thing that you add at planting is if you haven't added bone meal, add the Vita Bone Phos, bone meal, or add calcium. And if you add calcium, add it in the form of calcitic lime. Don't add dolomitic lime. Dolomitic lime takes years for it to become available. Get calcitic lime and put that down also 100 to 150 grams per running meter. Almost every single soil in this country is calcium deficient. Okay, and garlic requires calcium to produce great bulbs. Okay, it's one of the things that you have to put down. Cool. The next fertilization, I'll talk about the yellow one a little bit later. Okay, but that is the most important fertilizer, is right in the beginning of the season. You want to get that leaf growth as large as possible before winter sets in. Cool. Then, second fertilizer. I've got a list of stuff that I need to cover over here, otherwise I tend to forget. The second fertilization, so that is, you put your first fertilization down, you put your mulch on top of that. Okay, and then you want to water, and you want to make sure that the soil is constantly moist. Garlic doesn't have a big root system. It has a very small, so if you look at this garlic bulb over here, the root system is probably about this size. Okay, it is not a massive root system. And what that means is that it can't compete against other plants. So if you have a lot of weeds in your garlic, you have a lot of small garlic. Okay. It cannot compete. Garlic cannot compete. It can't compete with weeds, and it can't compete with other garlic. Okay. Each little garlic plant needs its own little environment that it needs to grow in. Okay. Constantly moist. Mulch it. Minimum of 5 centimeters thick. Please remember, minimum. We will put down about 10 centimeters of mulch. And what we'll find is that mulch will actually self-compress over winter. Early spring, that mulch is basically 70% gone. Those of you that are heavy into mulching know that the mulch just disappears. Okay, you need to put the mulch down. And it's critically important that you put the mulch down in spring. And I'll cover that now. Okay, but that mulch will keep the soil moist. It'll keep the soil cool. It'll increase the soil biological activity, which is actually what you're looking for. Okay, and it's probably the most important thing that you're going to do. If you're not mulching, you are not going to harvest great garlic. Simple. Okay, we plant hectares of garlic and we mulch all of it. The way that we mulch, so we'll mulch 2 different ways. You have your rows of your garlic, and then you have your rows where your staff walk, or if you're using implements, your tractor will drive. In the inter-row spacing where you're walking, we will put down 4 layers of cardboard and mushroom compost on top of that. Okay, what the cardboard does is it kills the weeds, it kills the grass, and the cardboard will break down and become part of the soil. Just remove the plastic tape. You'll see if you get an order from Living Seeds, we don't use plastic tape, we use paper tape. So it biodegrades into your soil. On the actual garlic, we will use either straw, hay, or we'll use mushroom compost, depending on what we have in availability. The price of straw went through the roof. We were paying about 40,000 Rand for a truckload. We're now paying close to 60. Okay, and it's just crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So we're fortunate that we can get mushroom compost from down the road over here. We'll get about 60 cubic meters every 2 weeks of mushroom compost. Okay, those of you that want to buy mushroom compost, we sell it by the cubic meter. I'm not 100% sure of the price, but just bring a bucky and we can load for you. Okay, cool. So that is the most important thing going into winter. Okay, is fertilize with a high nitrogen fertilizer, Vita Green, which is important. Put a proper mulch down, minimum of 5 centimeters, 10 centimeters would be even better. Okay, and then make sure that the soil is constantly moist. Okay, if you've done the mulching, you don't need to do the weeding. If you haven't done the mulching, you're going to need to weed. Who hates weeding? Who loves weeding? There's a couple of people enjoy weeding, okay? Yeah, but I know some of those people, and they're not all 100% straight in the head. Yeah, so, sorry? No, they're very nice people, but I mean, they're gardeners, so they are a little bit crazy. Yeah, so if you're not mulching, you're going to need to weed, and that's a problem. Who uses sprinklers to water? Who uses drip irrigation to water? Who has rust on their garlic? Sprinklers. You don't have sprinklers. Okay. If you use sprinklers on your garlic, there's a very high chance you're going to have rust. Guys in the Western Cape, because they're in a winter rainfall area, they struggle with rust all the time. Every single year they struggle with rust. So you can combat rust. The first thing to do to combat rust is you need to start a preventative spray program. And that is literally before the first rains start, or if you're using sprinklers, when you start watering your garlic. I would recommend that you spray copper soap approximately every 21 days, every 3 weeks. Choose a day of the week, mark it in your diary. I need to spray copper soap. Okay? Every 21 days. 50% of the minimum dose, and all you're doing is you want to try and prevent those rust spores from setting on your garlic and starting up. The minute you start seeing rust, decrease from 3 weeks down to 2 weeks. If it keeps increasing, bring it down to once a week. Okay? Copper soap's 100% organic. It's not going to harm your plants. You can spray and eat. It's not an issue. But you want to try and push that rust back as fast as possible, or as far as possible. If you're using sprinklers, or if you're in the Western Cape, you're going to get rust. It's guaranteed. Okay. The other alternative is to use drip irrigation. And you know what? You will still get rust with drip irrigation. Okay? Not always, but you can still get rust. I think this is the first year that we've had rust as a major issue, and our entire farm runs on drip. This is the very first year that we have had rust issues on our farm. And I don't know if it was because of the wet season last year or if it was because of the wet start to the season this year. I'm not 100% sure, but it's the first year that we've had rust issues. Cool. So now what happens is your garlic is growing nicely and it's great. You fertilize the garlic, you've mulched the garlic, you're watering, and you're heading into winter. And what's going to happen is when the first frosts start, for those of you that live in a frost area, when the first frosts start, you'll see that the garlic is going to stall. And it's going to slow down, and it'll slow down to a point where it doesn't look like it's going to grow. Okay, and that is what you want. And this is what the garlic needs. The garlic needs, it's called vernalization, it needs a cold period. And that cold period is so important to make the garlic bulb nicely. There are 3 things that start garlic bulbing. It's the day length. So we know in winter the days get shorter. So we go through winter, we hit the winter solstice, and the days start getting longer. Now, these 3 things, you must remember that we've got different kinds of garlic over here. And they don't all require exactly the same circumstances, but they require a similar set of circumstances. So when I say that garlic needs an air temperature of 20 degrees Celsius to start bulbing, okay, some garlic require 20, some require 18, some require 22. It's a min of meer naaste by plus minus ongeveer. You need to understand that it's a band that the garlic is working in. Okay. The next thing is it needs a soil temperature of 15 degrees Celsius. So the minute the soil temperature comes up and it hits 15 degrees Celsius, it starts to bulb. Okay, so it might be 13, it might be 16, it might be 17, but it's in that band. 15 degrees is the sweet spot, approximately 15 degrees. Okay, garlic stops bulbing at 24 degrees Celsius. Okay, and it's a much narrower band, so it might be 23 or it might be 25. But 24 degrees Celsius, it's like a switch, and the garlic stops bulbing like this, and you cannot restart it. Once the switch has been turned off, you can't turn the switch back on. It doesn't matter how much mulch you gooi, it doesn't matter how much fertilizer you gooi, water, it's klar, it's done. 24 degrees Celsius, it stops bulbing. And this is why mulching is so important, especially in spring. Okay, so those are the 3 things that garlic needs to bulb. 13 hours of day length, 20 degrees air temperature, a soil temperature of 15 degrees Celsius. Okay, the maximum soil temperature is 24 degrees Celsius. The minute it goes over 24 degrees Celsius, it stops bulbing. Now, the thing is, garlic will go from this to this in 2 weeks. Sure. 2 weeks. You'll take garlic from this size to this size in 2 weeks. And that is how important mulching is. Okay? If you can keep that soil temperature as low as possible, for as long as possible, your garlic is going to increase in size. Everybody wants to grow. I mean, this is giant garlic. This looks like giant garlic, hey? But it's not. This is called Eastern porcelain. Okay, but they got, I mean, check at the size of those cloves. They're stunning. Yes, this is a large example. We do have a lot that are smaller than this. Okay, but this is a large example. If you grow your garlic well, you can expect to harvest garlic like this at home. Okay. This is a variety called Tuscan. Also, check at the size of those cloves. I mean, I would love to buy garlic in the shops like this. Unfortunately, you don't. Most of the garlic that you buy in the shops is like this. Okay? And you only use the outside ring. Those tiny little ones, you haven't got time. Nah. Cool. Sorry? Are you using them? Yeah. So the thing is, when you harvest little garlic like this, okay, it can be disappointing. Because I put so much effort into my garlic. The cool thing is garlic like this is actually very pungent. Okay? So if you harvest small garlic like this, you know what? That's fine. Break it open, keep the outside ring of cloves to plant again next year. Okay? And just improve your soil. So I'm going to recap. When you plant your garlic, middle of February to the middle of April for those in Gauteng. Number 1. Number 2, make sure that you fertilize with a high nitrogen fertilizer, Vita Green. Okay, put down calcium. If you don't have access to calcitic lime, put down some bone phos. Mulch with any organic matter. It doesn't matter what it is. Just mulch with an organic matter. Mulch it deep. What the mulch does is it improves your moisture retention. It improves your soil's biological activity, and it keeps your soil cool. Water. Garlic needs constant moisture. Okay, it mustn't be constantly wet. It must be constantly moist. There is a difference. Okay, if your garlic struggles for water, it is not going to bulb correctly. Go into winter, make sure that the garlic is still constantly moist. Okay? Try not to use sprinkler irrigation, rather use drip irrigation. In spring, most of your mulch will have disappeared. Before the soil starts to warm up, mulch again, and mulch it thick. Really, really thick. Put down your before you mulch, put down your second round of fertilizer, which is your Vita Grow, the 232. That'll help to set the bulbs up nicely. It'll help to fill your bulbs out. Second layer of mulch, still keeping it constantly moist. If you have any weed pressure, remove the weed pressure. Garlic does not like competition. Cool. Excellent, guys. So I think that is basically how to grow garlic. Who's got questions?
I have a few.
Go for it. First question.
At planting, do you mulch or do you wait for the leaves to come up before you do your first mulch?
Cool. Great question. Question is, at planting, do you mulch or do you wait for your leaves to come out before you mulch? You can do both. It doesn't actually matter. If you mulch and you open up the mulch, plant your garlic clove, as it comes up, you can close the mulch. Fantastic. Or you can wait for it to come up and then mulch afterwards. It doesn't actually matter. We will do both. We plant a lot of garlic over here. So we don't have the time to do one. So we'll start planting garlic and guys will come in behind and fill up with mulch. Okay.
And the best way to store once you've harvested?
Best way to store the garlic once you've harvested. Okay, cool. So nice question. When do you harvest garlic? Say again? 50% of the leaves die on 50% of the harvest. Someone's been reading a manual. Okay, cool. So we see on our Facebook group so many times where people harvesting a 100% green garlic plant. Okay, that is the wrong time to harvest the garlic. There's nothing wrong. It's garlic. You can use it. You can cook with it. It will not store. And when you're planting a whole lot of garlic, you want to store the garlic. Am I right? Yes. Okay, you don't want to be buying that Chinese stuff at the local supermarket. You want to be buying the garlic that you've produced yourself, and you want that garlic to last you for as long as possible. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to harvest the garlic. So here's an interesting thing. So I showed you this garlic head over here, and it looks horrendous because all you can see is the cloves. There's no wrapper leaves around it. Every single wrapper leaf, so each wrapper leaf that you see on this garlic over here is actually one garlic leaf that comes out of the ground. So every single leaf equals one wrapper leaf. So what you need to do is you want to have 50% of the garlic plant dry. Those wrapper leaves will disintegrate when you harvest the plant. The green leaves will dry as you hang the plant up to dry out. Those green leaves will dry down, and those green leaves are the wrapper leaves that are on your garlic. Does that make sense? Cool, hey? If you leave the garlic in the soil too long, or you can't access the field because it's waterlogged, you're going to get garlic like this. I mean, here's the giant garlic, exactly the same story. Okay, no wrapper leaves. Okay, or minimal wrapper leaves. There's nothing wrong with this garlic. You can't sell it though, okay, because people don't want to buy this to put into their food. But there's nothing wrong with taking these cloves and planting them. So if you are harvesting garlic and you've got a field or a section of your field, many people, we've got a row of 4 fields at the bottom. The bottom half of these fields, with the rain that we had the other day, the bottom half of those fields are waterlogged. Okay. We can't work in those fields. Okay, so people will have issues like this. So you need to understand. So we'll take this garlic over here and use it for planting. But we'll take the garlic that looks nice like this and use it for selling. Okay, so just work with your garlic like that. Okay, so hang your garlic, allow it to dry. If you want to plat the garlic, once you've pulled the garlic, about a week to 10 days after you've lifted the garlic, those stems are going to be nice and pliable. And now you can plait the garlic into those nice garlic braids. Okay, so those of you that are selling at farmers markets, you're selling garlic braids at farmers market, you wait about 7 to 10 days after harvest, you can braid them up nicely, put them aside, and you can sell those at farmers markets for months afterwards. Cool. If you want to store garlic for planting, it's best to store it in as cool a place as possible. It doesn't have to be refrigerated. It doesn't have to be a special air-conditioned or whatever. It just needs to be a cool, stable place. You don't want to be storing it somewhere where the temperature fluctuates from 40 degrees down to 15 and then back to 40 degrees and back to 15. That's what's going to kill your garlic, or it's going to kill the storability of your garlic. Cool. Answer your question.
Perfect. And one last question. Soil temperature at planting, what should that range roughly?
So the soil temperature at planting, we've never really worked on the soil temperature at planting. What we've done is we've made sure that we put down a lot of mulch, okay, to keep that soil temperature cool. But there are guys that are north of Pretoria and Natal where the soil temperatures are 30, 40 degrees Celsius. Just wait until the soil temperature drops. Okay, or use the time while you take the garlic, stick it into the crisper drawer in your fridge, let it sit in a cool place for a while, prepare your soil, put a mulch down. The minute that you put a mulch down, you will drop your soil temperature by about 10 degrees. Okay, so you can go 30 degrees Celsius soil, put a mulch down, go back 2 days later, it'll be 10 degrees cooler. Okay, that is literally how important mulch is. Okay, and when you're trying to grow garlic, 24 degrees is your killer point. It stops, done, finished. Cool. It's not your killer point, it's your stop growing point. Cool. Okay, yes ma'am. Inez.
I grow my garlic in big plastic containers.
Yes.
I don't have land.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it better to grow them in plastic containers or the terracotta containers?
Okay, so the question is growing garlic in containers, plastic containers, terracotta containers, wooden containers, etc. The only thing with a plastic container is I wouldn't go with a dark colored plastic container, because the dark colored plastic container absorbs the heat, increases the heat of the container. That's the only thing I would worry about. I've seen phenomenal garlic crops grown in small little, those narrow window planter. I've seen great garlic grown in those. Okay, really, really great garlic. Wooden containers, terracotta containers. I think the terracotta would work nicely because it actually evaporates. The water evaporates off the terracotta, dropping the soil temperature. So I think those would actually be better. But Inez, what you do is you run a trial. Plant 5 in terracotta, plant 5 in plastic, see what the harvest is like. Okay.
Okay, if I use containers, what kind of ground do I buy?
Very nice question. Okay, so the question is, if the lady is using containers, what kind of soil do you use? You want to use the most improved soil possible, and it is not going to come out of a bag. Okay, now, seriously, it doesn't matter what soil. If you want to buy good quality compost, who buys compost? Who buys compost in bags? Everyone puts their hands down. Okay. The best time to buy compost is the middle of winter, because no one else is buying compost. If you are buying compost in spring, you are going to get the worst quality compost ever, because everybody else has bought all of the good compost, and now the compost companies are pumping out compost every 6 weeks. They have machines that turn it. If you can identify what's in the compost, it's not compost. How many of you can identify plant material inside your compost? It's not compost. It smells like compost, but it's not compost. And that's the problem. So make your own compost. I'll be with you now, ma'am. So if you want to make soil, if you want to make planting soil for your pots, take normal garden soil, 50% compost that you've made yourself, or compost that you've bought in the middle of winter. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, does it need full sun?
Garlic needs full sun. Don't plant garlic in a tunnel. You're wasting tunnel space. Tunnel space is planted to a higher yielding crop. So don't plant garlic in tunnels. Don't plant it under shade. Plant it directly outside in the soil, full sun. Ma'am, in the red.
I have a lot of horse manure.
You have a lot of horse manure.
Plenty.
Fantastic.
All the horse manure in the beds, garden and that.
Cool.
Is that okay?
Do you dig it in or do you put it on top?
I do work it in sometimes. otherwise
Don't
I
work
put
it in.
on top.
Okay, never work compost into the soil. Don't. Okay, those of you that work compost into the soil, who's taken kraal manure and worked it into the garden and the kraal manure has burnt the plants? Who's done that? The kraal manure didn't burn your plants. Okay, what the kraal manure, it's a high carbon input. And what carbon requires nitrogen to break the carbon down. So what happens is you mix this high carbon input into your soil, and the carbon absorbs all of the available nitrogen inside the soil, and your plants turn yellow. Oh, it burnt my plants. No, it didn't burn the plants. It's just taken all of the available nitrogen inside your soil. It's called nitrogen lockup. It's a thing. Okay. Just put it on top. Use it as a mulch. It's probably one of the best mulches you can put onto your soil. Okay. But don't dig it in. Cool. Yes, ma'am.
Grass cuttings?
Grass cuttings, absolutely perfect. What I like, sorry?
Grass cuttings as compost?
Grass cuttings as compost. So grass cuttings, the problem with grass cuttings, it's a very, very high nitrogen input. Okay. What I like to do with the grass cuttings is cut the grass cuttings, rake it up into a pile and let it dry for a couple of days. And then add it to your compost. Don't take the grass cuttings as they come off the lawn and into your compost, because it goes off very, very quickly. Okay, and then mix it in with a high carbon input as well. So shavings, straw, brown leaves, anything like that. Just mix it in. It'll be absolutely fantastic. Okay, but don't put it on fresh.
You got it in a hole and you allow it to rot and you just keep on adding, and afterwards you mix it?
That's fine. So, so a lot of people make compost holes where they have a hole and they throw all of their stuff into this compost hole. It works fine. It's not an ideal way of making compost, in my opinion, but a lot of people swear by it. Cool. But it'll work, yes. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Once you've harvested the garlic and it's hanging, how long will it last for dry?
It depends on the garlic variety. So certain garlic varieties store better than other garlic varieties. We don't sell any of the poor storing garlic varieties at all. They actually don't want to grow here, which is, I think, a good thing. Okay, but they actually are very nice garlic varieties. And you'll find garlic that should last a good 6, 8, 10 months. We've had people that have bought garlic and haven't planted it. And the following year they've said, I forgot my garlic. I didn't plant my garlic. And it's like, thanks for the money, guys. But they've had about 30% of their garlic was still usable. I don't know if it grew, though.
And if it starts sprouting?
If it starts sprouting, you can use it. There's nothing wrong with using sprouting garlic. If the garlic is sprouting out of season, don't plant it. You're just wasting space. Okay, the garlic is not going to produce well. It's not going to store well. Yes, sir.
Garlic's in the ground for a long time. Can you plant other things with it?
Garlic does not like competition. Shall I repeat that for you? Garlic does not like competition. So do not plant anything with your garlic. Do not intercrop garlic with something else. You will not get a good harvest. So one of the things that you can do, so what we do over here is we have dedicated fields for garlic production. They get handled differently to all of our other fields. And we do a lot of improvement on those fields, specifically for the garlic. What we will do over summer is we will plant a green manure crop. Okay, and this year we are working with sun hemp. We're planting inoculated sun hemp, which is a legume which fixes nitrogen into the soil. So when we plant our garlic, we can use less nitrogen fertilizer, which costs money. Just don't tell Claire from Telborn. So we will inoculate nitrogen into the soil so that we can actually use less fertilizer, because fertilizer, it's expensive. Okay. So we'll do an inoculated a sun hemp crop over winter, which is a winter nitrogen fixing crop. And this year we are going to be experimenting with about a 10-way green manure crop. So we're going to plant 10 different species as a green manure. And the investigation that I've done is that it's going to increase the soil carbon content dramatically, which is going to increase the quality of our garlic. Yes, sir. Chicken manure pellets, absolutely fantastic. Put it on top. As long as they're organically certified. So we don't use a chicken manure fertilizer. I know a lot of people are using chicken manure fertilizers. One of the things that you need to be 100% sure of is that the chicken manure fertilizer is certified organic. It mustn't just say organic on the bag. It needs to be certified organic. There have been multiple reports of glyphosate carrying through to the chicken manure, which damages crops after harvest. After planting, after fertilizing.
Just a normal chicken manure?
Normal chicken manure is fantastic. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to check on the lower temperature limit of the soil.
You want to check on the lower temperature? Okay, so the question, very good question, ma'am. So the question is, if the temperature drops below freezing, will it damage the garlic? The garlic will love you long time. Okay, serious. Garlic loves cold temperatures. Okay, in the States, they actually plant their garlic cloves before it snows, and it covers the soil, and they have frost that goes 1 meter, 2 meters deep in the States, and the garlic goes, how's it? Cool. Yes, ma'am.
What garlic variety would you recommend if I'm from Mpumalanga, Dalmas area, where the water freezes, but we've also got quite
You've got quite a dry red soil. Okay, so if you've got quite a dry red soil, you need to be improving your soil specifically with mulching. It's the fastest way. Mulching, activated worm effluent, it's the way to go. That's number one. Number two, I would look at pink elephant toes. This is pink elephant toes over here. I'd look at pink elephant toes, white elephant toes. I'd look at Costain's Russian red, Wenger's Russian red. I'd look at Tuscan. Those are all high-yielding varieties. They really enjoy cold weather. Cool. I'll get to you guys now. Something that we do sell is we sell a garlic sampler pack. And I think this year it's got 14 varieties inside the sampler pack. The nice thing with the garlic sampler pack is you can plant 14 rows of garlic and harvest 14 rows and see which ones grow best for you in your specific microclimate. And that's one of the reasons why we do the sampler pack, is it allows you to plant so many varieties of garlic all at one go, and you can actually see, okay, fine, this is what works for me. We've got customers. I've got a customer in the Northern Cape. She's now exporting giant garlic to Europe. I've got another customer, I think she's in Paris somewhere. She's now selling pink garlic directly to her customers. Okay, so it's a case of, it can be done, but each person wants to plant something different, something works for them. What works for us might not work for you, but I can tell you what works for us. I can give you a list of garlic. These are the highest yielding garlic. That list that I've given you now is actually the list of the highest yielding garlics. Sir?
I wanted to ask, so with your summer crop that you put in,
Yes.
to put nutrients back,
The green manure crop, yes.
does that allow you to not have to rotate your garlic crop
Yeah.
to different fields? I mean, are you constantly planting in the same field?
Very nice question. So one of the things that you should be doing is rotating your crops. We don't rotate our tomato crops. We've had tomato crops in these tunnels for, I think, 10 or 12 years now. Our garlic fields down there, we've been planting garlic in these fields for 4 years. And we have seen an increase in the size and the quantity of our garlic every single year, planted in the same fields. However, we put a different crop in over the summer month. Okay, and I think that is the key. Like literally that is the key, is you want to break any soil pathogens that might be building up in your garlic crop. We actually break those soil pathogens with a completely different crop. So right now we're using sun hemp. Next year we're going to use probably a 5 or a 6-way mix in those fields as well. Over winter in these crops over here, we'll be doing something different. We normally plant vetch. I've been a strong believer of vetch for many, many years. I think vetch is a fantastic cover crop, nitrogen fixing crop, but I want to mix it up. So we constantly try and improve things. Should you rotate your crops? Yes, you should. Do we rotate them? No, we don't, but we break the cycle. There's a question over here. I'll get you now, sir.
I just want to find out worm castings.
Yes.
Can you use that as well?
Absolutely.
Or, 'cause you just
Absolutely. So the worm castings, we've got 2 big worm farms behind over here. The worm castings that we produce out of these worm farms get used specifically for our germination mix to germinate seedlings for spring. We have a bath inside the show garden, is like a bench by the wooden raised beds. If you lift that bench, it's actually a worm farm, and that worm farm has leachate that comes out of it. We use that leachate to make our activated worm effluent. Okay.
you don't have to put the tea and stuff in.
No, you don't have to put the. So it's a case of with the tea, it's activated. So it's you have a phenomenally large bacterial population that you're feeding into the soil. The worm castings will do that. It'll just be a bit slower.
You don't work it in.
You never work anything into the soil. Okay, if you want to put the worm castings down, put the worm castings and then put your mulch on top. Okay, cool. So,
Your spacing of your garlic versus your drip irrigation, the
Okay, so the drip irrigation that we sell as a 300 mil spacing, the garlic that we plant is at 150 mils. So we'll plant 150 mils. So we'll plant it staggered. So it's 150 mils. This is 300 mils away, and then 150 mils. And we'll do it in a zigzag pattern going down the field. And that gives you the biggest spacing between the garlic.
What I'm getting at is one garlic's going to get the matter and the other one.
No. So with the drip irrigation, our drip irrigation, the emitters emit 1 liter per hour. You want to run the drip irrigation for a minimum of 3 hours at least twice a week. If you run it for 3 hours, the water, it looks like it's dripping where the emitter is, and there's a big gap and the next emitter is over here. After 3 hours, if you scrape the soil away in the center, you'll see that it's actually moist all the way from emitter to emitter. Okay, those of you who's got drip irrigation can back me up with that statement. Okay, if you run the drip irrigation for 3 hours, okay, after 3 hours, you open it up, you'll actually see that it's moist.
I've got drip and I've got sandy soil, so it makes it curve.
Well,
I've heard of pulse, I usually run for 5 minutes every hour.
yeah, I don't know. I can't answer that question. What I would do is I would put on mulch. If you've got sandy soil, increase it with mulch. Increase your carbon content of your soil by using mulch. And what that'll do is it'll increase the fungal. So there's a whole cycle, and I mean it's off on a tangent. But the more you increase the amount of organic matter in the soil, the faster you increase the mycelium growth inside the soil, the faster you increase the bacterial growth inside the soil, the faster your plants exude. They're called plant exudates. Those plant exudates actually hold the soil together, but it's a whole process. But it all starts with actually increasing the organic matter inside your soil. Mulch. Okay, so put your mulch down and plant the garlic just touching the clay soil, and concentrate on the organic matter and not on the clay. Okay, soil calcium will help to break down or help to loosen up your soil. So put down calcitic lime, that'll help to loosen up your soil. But don't concentrate on the clay. Rather put down a bed of organic matter and work in that organic matter, and that organic matter will actually filter down and actually lift your soil content.
And it's not a good idea to initially add stone or something?
No, not at all.
Not necessarily.
No. Gypsum. Yeah, gypsum. So gypsum is probably one of the fastest ways to get available calcium inside the soil. So calcitic lime, gypsum is very, very good. Gypsum's immediately available, and it's got a soluble sulfur iron as well, which is good for the soil.
What about eggshells?
You're going to need a lot of eggshells. We've got 1,500 chickens over here. We do not produce enough eggshells to provide the calcium that our farm requires. And we have a lot of eggs. Cool. Guys, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
You say we can start planting from February to April.
Yes.
Give me a month when to take it out. I know you explained about
Okay.
the leaves and everything.
Cool. So it's a very good question. We say start planting middle of February to middle of April. That is your sweet spot. Okay. When you start harvesting, so we have over 20 kinds of garlic. We don't harvest all 20 kinds of garlic at the same time. The first garlic variety that is ready for harvest is typically Eastern porcelain, and we will start harvesting somewhere around the middle of October. Okay, it's Eastern porcelain, it's Tuscan. Those are the first two varieties. Then it's the giant garlic, and then all of the other garlics come in within a week or two of each other. But you're going to be harvesting around the middle of October. Okay, that's where you start harvesting. Okay, however, 50% of your garlic plant needs to be dry, 50% of the leaves on 50% of the crop. Min of meer naaste by plus minus ongeveer. It's always min of meer naaste by plus minus ongeveer. All right. Last question, ma'am.
With the little culture or the lasagna lane, what is your thoughts on that?
Absolutely fantastic. It'll work for your garlic. Okay, so lasagna gardening, hugel culture, any organic gardening method will work. Any method where you till the soil, where you break the soil up, it's not what you want to be doing. Cool. Excellent, guys. Thank you very much.